Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mohammed Abduroaf. I'm a practicing advocate in Cape Town, and we're having today a special guest, Daniella Mair, a psychological counselor dealing with a lot of family law matters. Daniella, welcome to the show, and could you please introduce yourself and tell us more about you? I know all about you already, but if you do it, it will be better.
Perfect. Thank you so much, and thank you for inviting me. My name is Daniella. I am a psychological counselor and a FAMAC accredited divorce mediator. And I run a practice basically focusing on divorce counseling, family therapy, with a specific interest in childcare and contact, and making sure basically that the best needs of children are met throughout any dispute, any parenting plans, the works.
Awesome. So, Daniela, we all know that it's lockdown and many people had a lot of family law issues. How relevant was your services since lockdown? Maybe you can give us some insight into that.
So, lockdown presented a whole host of issues that I don't think any of us were really expecting. But with a little bit of hindsight, it does make perfect sense. A lot of people obviously being locked in their homes with no escape. I mean, to put it as politely as I can, we noticed a dramatic jump and increase in divorce, in the divorce rate, and unfortunately also in domestic violence. So my services and services of family therapists, mediators, probably family advocates and everything, was, I think, very, very important, and something, like I said, that we weren't expecting to necessarily see such a spike in.
No, Danny, 100% correct. To those watching, we are streaming live on Facebook, and obviously we're having a Zoom webinar where people are coming in all the time. So if I look away from you, Daniela, I'm looking at the other screen, letting some of our people come in. Thank you for that. So, Daniela, from my side, I can confirm with you, since the lockdown came into operation, there was issues. You know, the minister came with funny regulations stipulating that children can't move, and then she changed it soon thereafter that you can only move the kids if there's a parenting plan in place, registered with the Office of the Family Advocate, or having a court order in place. Then things changed a bit more afterwards. But there were definitely challenges and issues that came about. And I would say services from people like yourself are very relevant then and even more relevant now because things are different. I mean, the world we lived in that time was totally different. Daniela, just tell us generally, how does your day, how does it work? You know, what type of people do you see generally?
So I see people in different sectors of life. So I have a private practice, like I said, and I often see couples who come to me for mediation. I'm just going to speak a little bit about mediation because a lot of people don't really understand what it's about. Sorry. So technically, you get divorced, you're going to part ways, you've got assets, you've got children. A lot of people confuse children with assets. Not the case. Children are not assets. But so what mediation is they're saying, you know what, let's give the responsibility to you. Let's see if there's a way that we can work this all out amicably. Meet with a mediator, everybody gets their say, everybody can state what they want, what they dislike, all of that. And we hope that out of mediation, we can come to some sort of an amicable agreement where both parties concerned and both parents can leave the mediation process feeling like winners. If mediation doesn't work, unfortunately, that's when we go to litigation and where everything gets a little bit messy. So first prize is always mediation. And then further from that, the other kind of people that I see are people who are going through divorce. I went through divorce myself, so I understand the value of being able to go through the process in as meaningful a way as possible. So what I like to try and do is I like to give my clients a safe space where they can actually work through the actual process, not only the nitty-gritty and the nuts and bolts and who's going to get what, but also how life is changing, not only for the couple, but for the kids as well.
Now, Daniela, I agree with you 100%. I like what you said now. The reason why I asked that from you is because people are obviously watching us live, and what generally happens is after this video comes to an end, many people post questions on Facebook. I would like everybody that if you have any questions, the show is for the next 30 to 35 minutes. Please post it now. I'm an advocate, a family law expert. Daniela, childcare expert, you know, she knows her stuff. Feel free to post it now and we'll try our best to answer it on Facebook. And if you are part of the webinar on my right-hand side here, you're welcome to post any other questions. Daniella, obviously the topic is family counseling and mediation. I'm a litigator, I'm not a mediator. As I say, don't litigate, mediate, meaning take me out of the equation. But that's all good. I'm happy matters can be resolved out of court. Many people pose questions when registering for this webinar. A lot of them dealt with family law, with child maintenance. I'm not dealing with that at all. There'll be another webinar for that. But there are 3 questions which I would like to deal with. I have sent it to you, and maybe you can add some comments to it. I'll deal with a shorter question, the one that was sent now recently. When is it absolutely necessary to place and involve the child into the court proceedings of disputes of the parents as channels of communication and mediation has failed? If the parents are not willing to compromise in any regard, what impact and consequences will this have on the child short of long term? So basically, when do you get the child involved? When do you consult with the child? When do you look at what the child has to say in this specific matter? Obviously, depending on the child's age, but what is your view and what is your experiences regarding this?
So my view on this is very specific, and I don't feel that there's been enough research done into the long-term and even short-term effects of child involvement in parenting plans. However, I do believe that if a child has meaningful involvement in the parenting plans that are being created for them, that the long-term benefits are huge. They feel that they have an opinion, that they've been heard. And although children never get to make the final decision, I place tremendous value on actually hearing what they think and what they go through. On that, there is actually a clause in the Children's Act, which is Section 10, where it states that a child of such maturity level, age, and understanding and emotional level, basically, that they should actually be able to have a meaningful involvement in their parenting plan. Like I said before, often parents use their children as pawns, and I'm generalizing here. I mean, no offense to any parent, but they often place there's a lot of ego involved in everything, and they just want to win, which is also, again, why we try and stay away from litigation, which is a win or lose situation. So what we would like to do, or what I would like to see, is I would like to see every child involved in some way, in a meaningful way, in an age-appropriate way. And of course, if it is handled with the correct care by a healthcare professional who is equipped to deal with the emotional level of that particular child, that the results would be tremendous.
No, I agree with you on that. Daniella, before I go further, somebody posed a question live on Facebook. It says the following: my husband refuses to engage in any mediation. He has done everything but stalls the divorce. 4 years to resolve a divorce after he was the one who filed for divorce. Please, how do I get past the stalling? I'll answer that quickly, and then you can maybe add over there. Yes, that's a problem we have, where people do not want to get engaged in mediation, and mediation means it's a joint effort. If it's not mediation, it's a court order, and the court makes a final decision. When mediation is concerned, my understanding is you listen to both sides of the story. The mediator tries to be in the middle over here, takes no sides, and try to get middle ground. Middle ground can't always happen, because let's say the mother wants to have custody, primary care, the father wants to have primary care, he's standing on that. The best way to resolve that matter would be the court. A court will have to resolve it. Daniella, your experience, what happens if a party does not want to engage in mediation? And you must probably get it a lot, where the mother comes to you and say, I want to go for mediation, the father doesn't want to.
I agree with you. What you've said is spot on. And unfortunately, very often it does lead to the direction of the court. And once it gets there, what people do not understand is then it's out of their hands. Social workers will be appointed, there'll be investigation, and I don't think people are prepared for what the actual process is. So I think that perhaps if there was a little bit more information about what was to be expected, they might reconsider the mediation story. But the way that I like to work in my practice is that I work from a psychological framework, which we've already discussed. But what this does is, instead of saying we are now mediating and we are coming to an agreement about what's going to happen, I say, you know what, come, let's have a discussion. Let's give you the opportunity to be heard. What are your issues? Why don't you want to mediate? And try and kind of invite a couple in under that guise, that it's here to be discussed, that nothing is binding. Mediation is obviously not something that is mandatory. And yeah, it's a decision. And once people kind of are, you need to break the walls a little bit and say, you know what, nobody's wrong here, nobody's right. Nobody's winning. Put the ego aside. We need to now just find the correct way forward that suits everybody, especially the child, and see if maybe that will help them reconsider. And I have had a little bit of success in that way, because often the one that gets hurt, the one that gets served the divorce papers, automatically come in with a brick wall up to the sky. So the point is to handle it with enough care and mindfulness to realize that everybody is going through some sort of emotional journey, and our job as professionals is to kind of make it as easy for them as possible to deal with everything, not just the mediation or the divorce or the children.
Yeah, I can see the difference between our jobs. I mean, your job is, empathetic. My job is fighting, taking the sword out and and fighting it out there.
Exactly.
Daniella, it's something very interesting you've mentioned there, and I experience it a lot. Where parties they separated, let's say in 2020. They would not have had a proper conversation together for the last 2 years. The conversations took place via lawyers, via other parties, or whenever they speak to each other, an argument erupts. Sometimes what needs to be done is they need to be in the same room together. A mediator or an umpire, for lack of a better term, must be there and say, "Ma'am, speak," and "Sir, just listen." And
exactly.
And the opposite applies, where he's speaking and she listens. And that could be the only time for the last 2 or 3 years that they actually heard each other, as opposed to wanting to fight with each other. Daniella, thank you for that. Okay, we have one question.
Sorry, I just wanted to say, funnily enough, during the lockdown, Zoom and WhatsApp conferences and everything has been the most amazing experience for somebody like me. Because when you have the mediation and there's a fight starts, I can just mute the one and say, okay, it's not your turn, mute. And they have to listen. And it's been amazing. So yes, being an umpire is exactly right.
So all you need is the internet connection. You can do major progress where that is concerned. Now, wonderful. Daniella, we have 2 questions on the Zoom webinar that I've posed. I'll deal with that shortly. There's a live question on Facebook. I'll just read it out. What happens if the father keeps avoiding a roundtable meeting and still refuses to comply with criminal order? Please bear in mind my child has special needs and is non-verbal and was warned by court that if he refuses to comply with a court order, he will take further criminal action, and please bear in mind that he has no visitation rights. So we have a scenario again over here whereby the father does not want to sit on the same table, and there are other issues involved. This is such an issue concerning people not wanting to sit on the same table. I heard your advice earlier on, and your strategy is let them speak. But is there anything we can do if they do not want to sit on the same table? There's not much we can do, huh?
Unfortunately not. There is no, unless the court orders mediation, unfortunately it's voluntary at this point. And hopefully, we hope that in the future it does become more mandatory. But at the moment, it is completely voluntary. So there is nothing that we can do to force somebody to come to the table, unfortunately.
Yeah. And the specific person on Facebook said there's a criminal order in place. So obviously, if you're violating criminal order, you need to, go to the police and they'll have to sort it out. And Daniella, funny you mentioned, I think about when the Children's Act came to operation, Section 33 says specifically before approaching the court, a party needs to first try to mediate it, see a family advocate, a social worker, etc. Strangely enough, when that section came to operation, all our court documentation, when drafting it, we specifically said that we tried mediation or we will do it soon thereafter. But it seemed to have faded away over the last 5, 6, 7 years. That whole thing of mediation first went away. Courts are just listening to matters without that being, adhered to. Daniella, let's deal with the Zoom questions. What the party has posted. She says, false allegations, perjury, and alienation is helped on even as High Court, and everybody is turning a blind eye and ears. I have a court order to have physical contact with my son. So there's a court order. I haven't seen my son for 3 years and it's just being ignored. What way? Okay. Not even the police wants to open a case of contempt of court. Please, any advice or help to enforce the court order? So there's a court order in place and it's not being adhered to. Other parties refusing contact. and the police isn't assisting them, I can't much assist this person. The only thing I can advise this person is maybe go up the ladder, speak to the police commander, speak to the court
I was
officials.
thinking too.
Yeah, because there is a
When
court
you're in
order in
breach
place.
of when you're in contempt of court or in breach of the court-ordered parenting plan, it has to be given over to the authorities. And if you're not winning with them, I mean, I can't really speak on this, but you've got to just persevere and keep going higher and higher up, because that's a big issue. That's, you know, it's similar to how do you get somebody to come to the party? You don't. You have to physically go and make sure that it's dealt with in the correct way.
Yes, and it's difficult because people come to me as well and they tell me, I have a maintenance order in place. The father doesn't want to pay, and the maintenance court isn't helping them. The system must be there to assist you, and it's very sad. So climb the ladders, make a noise, go to the media, go to the press. Do what you need to do. Let people do their jobs. Daniela, I got a question for you.
Yes.
Let's say I am willing to mediate the matter. I'm happy to discuss the matter, but I believe I must have sole custody over my child, meaning not sole custody, but the child should sleep by me during the week and by the father or the mother every second weekend. I am there. The other party believes exactly the same. He or she believes that he must have sole primary care, etc. They don't have issues concerning half-school holidays. What would your strategy be there in trying to find some middle ground? How will you address that issue?
Then both parties have come to the table.
They came to the table, but they want the two opposite sides of the coin. Both want the same part of the coin.
So what we do is very often we have a number of sessions of mediation before we get to any sort of middle ground or amicable resolution. Yeah. So the strategy really for me is to give each person, again, the opportunity to express why they feel that is right and why they feel that they are the ones that need to have primary care over the child. What I often do when things get a little bit heated is I always remind, as a general rule, I always remind my clients that we are here to deal with the child, not their emotional needs. And one of the little strategies I use is I place a doll on my couch and I say, okay, this is your child. Consider the fact that your child is sitting in the session as well. Now tell me again, why do you think that you need to have primary care? Another way to deal with that, I find, is to catch the parents kind of not off guard. And I mean this in an upfront way, where I say, you know what, we've been saying I need the child because I am the one that does this, or my ex-spouse to be doesn't know how to do X, Y, and Z. And I lead the session towards, okay, let's rather, instead of looking at the negatives, let's rather look at what your spouse or ex-spouse does do and what they have brought to the table and why. Give me 3 reasons why you're proud that this is your child's parent, and slowly again break down the walls to say, you know what, actually that person is not such a bad person, is not such a bad parent. And maybe there is validity to what they can bring to my child that I can't, because that is inevitable. Each parent brings something different to raising the child, and very often the child needs the balance between both of them. So I hope that's answered the question.
Yeah, no, you definitely answered. And what I'm picking up over here, Daniela, is the more experienced the counselor or the mediator is, the better the chances are for there to be a breakthrough. Because if you come
100%.
to the... If you come, I mean, obviously we have two, two opposite sides of the coin. One is fire, one is water. So you need to know your clients. You need to know that these are the problems. You need to know that for the first 2 hours they will just be fighting. Then at some point after that fighting, it needs to take place. There needs to be this anger, this resentment. It needs to be vented.
And very often you get to a situation where you're just at a standstill, and there's absolutely no going around it. And then again, it's up to the experience of the practitioner, the mediator, to say, you know what, we're not going to progress here. Let's cut the session short, go home and think about it. Or obviously with permission from both parties, is to caucus and say, you know what, we can't do this. You meet with me on X time. You tell me your side. I will then meet with the other person on another time and hear their side, and then try and see if you can resolve it as a practitioner privately and make sense of everything, so that you can go back to the parties in a joint session and say, right, I have heard you. This is how you feel. and be able to like explain it from a more like practical psychological point of view as opposed to an emotional one. The point, obviously, of mediation, again, is to be the mediator needs to present as a neutral party who's completely unbiased. So anything like this would be with the permission of both parties. And then the mediator needs to obviously be very mindful of the fact that they cannot sit there taking sides, and they need to represent each of their clients, because you've got two clients really, in the appropriate way.
Yeah. So Daniella, there's a question I'll ask you, and maybe just to put some facetiousness on this issue. Having to deal with lawyers. So is it difficult to deal with lawyers when mediation is concerned? Whereby the lawyers on the sideline, they say go, but they tell the client go to mediation, but caucus me, and so you're basically mediating with the lawyers and the client, but other lawyer being present. Does it ever happen to you, or did you experience that before?
I have experienced it, not very often though. With the greatest respect to lawyers, I can say that mediation with a legal mediator is very, very different to mediation with a psychological mediator. And they both have their place. And again, I cringe to say this because I mean no disrespect, but when you deal with a lawyer, like you've said, it's swords out, we're going to fight. When you deal with a psychologist, you say, okay, how are you feeling? Why do you feel that way? Etc., etc. So very often what I do is we co-mediate. So I personally try to stay as far away from maintenance issues as possible. I'll be there to advise, but when it comes to the nitty-gritty of maintenance, I always call a legal mediator in to co-mediate with me so that they can address all of those kind of concerns, and I can be there to keep the level, like the temperament level, you know?
Yes. Yeah, Daniella, it's very relevant, and I'm so glad I'm connecting with you. We have one other live question on Facebook. It's not to do with this topic, but I'll just quickly deal with it. Why are courts taking so long to give garnish or annulment orders? Putting men in jail does not help our children. I think that's more of a question we can't ask. I mean, they have to deal with the court, and the court will have to answer that. Daniella, there's one last question that was posed. Actually, the first question that was posed, but the one we did with last. It's a very long question, but let me read it out quickly. Can the family advocate's recommendations or parenting plan and the court order made by the Belleville Children's Court be challenged as a mother is or was not in agreement with the parenting plan, and the 3-year-old child is very traumatized when she gets sent to from the mother to the father for 9 days a month? So the father sees the child for 9 days a month, every month. He's a drug addict and traumatizes the child. The mother has no contact with the little girl for 9 days.
How can I help you?
It's definitely affecting the child negatively. So I think that the story goes on over there. So the question basically is over here is, if the court makes an order,
do you perhaps have a current ticket number, or would you like to go back into the queue?
I think somebody...
No problem. I'll transfer you through. Please hold for...
This is what happens if you do Zoom webinars. Okay, so I think the issue over here is the court made an order, family advocates came on board. The mother is not happy with the order because she feels that the child is still being traumatized by being by the father's house for 9 days per month. She believes that the child should only be by the father's place for 4 days per month. That's what basically summarizes the whole question over there. My view, maybe if I can put in over here, is if the experts were really on board and they really advised and recommended that this is best for the child, then I would say this is best for the child. Why do I know best? If the mother wants to challenge it, obviously she can take it on appeal. Alternatively, she can maybe get another part, another expert, another psychologist, social worker, whatever the case may be, to reassess the matter, and with that new information that can most probably be presented. What is your take on that, Daniella?
I think I agree with you that if there is any genuine concern for the court-ordered parenting plan, that I would highly recommend that it does get appealed. And obviously, either you can go into the family courts, or you can get a legal aid representation or your own legal representation. But I just want to answer this question in a roundabout way to touch on Section 9 of the Children's Act, which states very clearly that in all matters of care, protection, and well-being of the child, that is of absolute paramount importance. Yes. So I believe that if there is any indication at all that the child might not be looked after in that regard, that it is definitely the responsibility of the other parent to bring it forward, not to make accusations or throw their toys out the cot, but to say, you know what, magistrate or advocate or whatever, I'm genuinely concerned. I can't sit back and just let this happen. I demand that we relook at it and have further investigation. There has been a little bit of issues that I've been dealing with lately where social workers have not come to the party 100%, and where the reports have kind of like been a bit wishy-washy, and I've been brought in quite often as almost like an expert witness to do further investigation and then to come to any court hearing and basically make recommendation as well in my own capacity, which then gets discussed. But the one thing that we need to remember is there's a difference between rights and responsibilities. And this is what a lot of people also do not understand, is that every single person, every parent has got an equal right to their child, meaning that they should have equal rights to access to their child, provided they can offer the children their rights. So if you are a parent that is not in a position to offer your child protection, just a few of the basic rights, and we talk about parental care, nutrition, education, etc. If you cannot give that to your child, then you need to be the adult about it and say, you know what, I as a person cannot fulfill this for you as a child. Therefore, I'm going to agree with the court order, or I'm going to actually listen to what's being said here. Responsibility is being able to provide for your child. So although everybody has got a right to their child, not everybody puts the same emphasis on their responsibility to that child. And on the flip side, of course, every single child has a right, has the same rights that need to be addressed. So if you are a parent, again, just to sum up, who feels that your child is in harm for reasons that are valid like that, I remember when I read the question, it said that the child's missing a few days of school because of this arrangement. And that is a direct violation of the child's right in education. So you have to look at all of these different factors and appeal it and hope that it's actually that you're being heard.
No, Daniella, thank you for that. That was a question, the last question we have, and I have a few questions for you as well. If you are watching this video will be streaming later on. It will be on a replay, so it won't be live, but people might want to share it. So if you find this video useful, please share it, and other people can benefit from it as well. Daniella, I like your strategy in the sense of, I'm a lawyer, the judge is a lawyer, the family advocate are lawyers, everybody are legal people. We're good at drafting documentation, we're good at arguing, we're good at presenting stuff and taking it to the court. That's what we're good at. What we're not good at is determining a child's psychological well-being, the emotional well-being, determining what's best for the child. We can argue it based upon your reports. So it's important for me to become a good practitioner, for me to be successful in my case, is to have very good reports, and the person that made the report was somebody that was very active and involved in the case. How I heard what you said early on, and that's why I'm asking this question. You go to court, you don't mind becoming expert witness, who give you your insight into this matter. But if a practitioner like yourself does not get so involved in the matter, what are the negative consequences?
I can't even imagine how a practitioner like myself cannot be involved. And this is one of the problems we have with the social workers, unfortunately, and that's by no fault of their own, is they also are working for the courts. So their clients become a number. And it is so key to every single case to look to be able to sit and look at it uniquely and to have some sort of vested interest in the case. So for me, I am completely and exceptionally passionate about what I do. Yes. I feel that it is my responsibility. I mean, it's nonsense. It's not the case, but I put a lot of pressure on myself and take the responsibility on that I need to be the one there to make sure that the child is 100% taken care of and that everyone's happy. So because of that, I go the extra mile. I make sure that I'm at every court date. I make sure I set up WhatsApp groups for all of my clients, that they know that if they have any issues, they can WhatsApp me on a group. So it's the mother, the father, and myself, and we can deal with it right there and then, just to take the pressure off everything. Is that practical long term? Probably not. But I believe that there's huge value in that. And if you don't have that genuine compassion and care for your clients, it's the same as representing somebody who you don't really believe in. Like, how do you fight for that person, you know? So negative consequences of that is that you are just another number. I'm going to do my best, but that's all I can really do. Instead of saying, you know what, I'm going to do my best and then some, and I'm going to go the extra mile. And if we can't work it out, then we're going to explore all the other avenues instead of saying, okay, case closed, sorry, we didn't do it, goodbye.
No, Daniella, thank you for that. I think it's very important that we have more people like you, more professionals like you, because we are dealing with families, we are dealing with children. It's not about only money and, you know, billing people. It's about, you know, getting that product, you know, making a change out there. We have another comment or question on the Facebook Live. It says, I would really like to know how it can be in the child's best interest to have one parent come in and out of their life as they please. For example, seeing the child once every few years, not because they can't, but because they don't want to. Why still have rights at all? Daniella, maybe you want to just comment on that. I can comment as well.
That is a very difficult question because, again, we say that every parent has got a right to access to their child. So what I would do, I have dealt with a situation like this before. And what we've done is, obviously, when somebody is coming in and out of a child's life, like with no indication of when they're going to see them again, we present that parent to the child in a different way that we would with a parent who's around. So I had a client once whose father, they didn't know the father until they were 4, and then the father was in and out like every couple of months. So what we did is, obviously the child at the time was mature enough to understand that this person was the father and what the expectations of the child were. But we made sure that whenever the father came and gave prior notice to wanting access to the child, that it was done in such a way that the child felt safe and contained. So it wasn't just, oh, I'm coming to take my child, we're going camping and I'll see you next week. It's, you know what, this child, you have to consider yourself a stranger to this child. Therefore, I'm not going to just give my child to anybody who comes in to say, I want to spend time with him. What we're going to do is we're going to set up a time. We're going to set up a date. Either in this case, the mother was also involved. But if the mother can't be involved, and say, okay, we're going to appoint a supervisor just to be there in case the child needs anything, you know. So it's very difficult to get the parent in question to agree to these terms. But there are strategies that we set up to make sure that it's as easy for the child to adjust to the situation. It is absolutely not in the child's best interests to have a parent coming in and out like that. Absolutely not. And if it got to the situation where they wanted to formulate a proper care and contact arrangement, they'd probably have a very difficult time saying, yes, the care and contact is that you're going to be primary caregiver and I'm going to come around every 3 months. I would never let that pass. So it is, again, a process. But if it just comes in and out, it's not fair. It's not fair on the child. It's not fair on the other parent. But let's try and make it as comfortable for the child as possible.
Daniella, thank you for that. It's very sad because if somebody doesn't pay child maintenance, the law comes in and it can force a person to pay child maintenance. You know, that's not that so super hard. There's many problems in the system, as we can see, but that's possible. If somebody doesn't love their child and wants to be in the child's lives, unfortunately, the law can't make you want to love your child, want to be involved in the child's life. And that concerns me because a child needs to have both parents in his or her life. They might not be the best parents, they might have certain issues of their own, but they need to be there. So the child can say, you know, when it's an adult, you know, I had a father, I had a mother, it wasn't the most perfect situation. But if a child to say, or an adult to say, you know, I had a father, I don't know who he is, he's been somewhere else, you know, that could be traumatizing to the specific individual. And it's very sad. And I think the law needs to come in and force parents to start loving the kids. Daniella, we got about no, we can force them to pay, but I don't know. Daniella, we got about 3 minutes left. Any final words you have, advice to anybody out there? And also later on, I'll ask you the question, how can they get hold of you? But we leave that for now.
What I just want to say is that I find very important is that a lot of people mix up maintenance and childcare and contact. And this is a big, big issue for me because I have very many clients that come and say, well, he's not paying maintenance, she's not paying maintenance, therefore I'm going to withhold contact. It does not work like that. And all that does is cause huge issues going forward. So as a general rule, care and contact is one thing. If it's adhered to or not is irrelevant at this point, but what you do there is then you go to the family courts.
Yes.
Maintenance is another issue. If a parent is not paying their maintenance, you go to the maintenance court. There is no, I had a client again who said, oh, well, he's not paying maintenance, therefore I'm not going to go and take them to Home Affairs to do something for you. I said, but you can't do that. So the point is, it's so very difficult, and I understand that because financial concerns are so pressing and stressful that it's easy to lose sight of everything else around it. But financial issues and parenting plans, care and contact, completely separate, and they're both separate battles that need to be fought. And the only advice I can give is, you know what? Life is not fair. It's hardly ever fair. And if you've got a child that you love and the child's other parent does not want to come to the party, why would you want that child to have to deal with them? So you know what? You count your blessings, you count your losses, and you say, my job as a parent now, because when you have children, your life is secondary. I have this child. I'm going to give the child the best life possible, and I'll deal with everything as it comes. So long as the child is well looked after, they've had all their rights checked off, they have all their well-being concerns addressed. All we can do is hope then that through therapy and through the correct intervention, that this child will be able to break any cycle and do better for themselves and for their children going forward.
Daniella, thank you very much for that. Daniella, there's a link under, you can't see it now, but where the video is playing, there's a link with our web details. You also have a website, but either click on that link, they can find your details, or they can just Google you and they can get hold of you for any assistance. Daniella, that's our time. Our time is up. Thank you very much. We are having a follow-on. We spoke about this as well, maybe next week or the following week, and we can tackle some other issue regarding, family counseling and mediation. It's a very pertinent and relevant topic. Daniella, to all the viewers and all the people that's watching us on Facebook, thank you very much for your time, and we hope you have a wonderful week, and we'll chat to you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.